Hey, what is going on, Warhammer fans? We are here to check out another Primarch video. Today's going to be LORGAR AURELIAN. I hope I said that name right. I've been hearing that name. I think he's just in the Chaos faction. I mean, not just. We're going to find out more. That's just usually when I hear his name. And, I'm going to be taking notes. I just had my notes all polished up, so they look very neat as of today. And you know what I was thinking? I was thinking of once I'm done with the Primarchs, and I think I should check out one more, which is the Chaos Primarchs. Remembrancer has another video like that. You guys probably don't know what I'm talking about, but what I'm saying that is, I was like, I should do like a Warhammer video for beginners based on what I've learned. Here it is, Trader Primarchs. I feel like that should be an interesting series. I'm gonna check that out first. So it would be, what I know about each Primarch. Just Warhammer 40K for beginners from the perspective of a beginner, and then see what I would do if I were to redo this thing, I don't know, a year or 2 years or 3 years ago, 3 years from now, whenever, and just keep kind of expanding on it, making it better. And this would be something like I'd have to put like a lot of time, so it's a quality video, not just something I banged out. But at the same time, you'd have to know it's a novice who put it together. So I don't know if that's a bad or a good thing, but I was like, that's my idea. Anyways, let's get into it. I want to hear what you guys think. If you guys got anything to recommend, use the pinned comment. We're trying to get this channel to 20,000 subscribers. We're trying to double. As you see, I have that long-term vision in mind. So I'll appreciate you guys' support. I'm checking out a lot of people's material, but hey, man, I'm very conscious of I want to produce. I don't want to just consume. Something about that doesn't sit right in my nature. So let's jump into the video. And if you guys have been following me, you guys know that when I first started, like the very first video, I was inspired because I want to write my own story, which I am, by the way. I am writing my own story. And I was seeking inspiration from the vast amount of information Warhammer has. Let me not delay any further.
All I ever wanted was the truth. Remember those words.
Dang. These headphones are not working. I hate that. 1 second.
All I ever wanted was the truth. Remember those words as you read the ones that follow. I never set out to topple my father's kingdom of lies from a sense of misplaced pride. I never wanted to bleed the species to its marrow, reaving half the galaxy clean of human life in this bitter crusade. I never desired any of this.
Now, what did you desire?
Though I know the reasons for which it must be done. But all I ever wanted was the truth.
Okay, Lorgar. Okay.
The Primarchs of his Imperium would instill loyalty and fealty within the hearts of mankind. Paragons of humanity, capable of sundering empires and uplifting civilizations, the charisma, charm, and deeds of the sons of the Emperor would never be exceeded by mortal men. Yet their exceptional power would not only hasten his Imperium's rise, but also its catastrophic downfall.
Missed catastrophic.
For today, we shall elucidate the architect of the Horus heresy and devastation of the Imperium of Man. The Primarch of the 17th Legion, LORGAR AURELIAN.
The architect.
With the scattering of the Primarchs across the stars, the young child of the 17th Legion would be cast to the planet of Colchis. A world rife with superstition and religious ideology.
Of course.
The subjects of the planet would bask in the rays of the heat of the sun and worship fell gods steeped in feudal tradition.
Jeez.
Once a technologically sophisticated world, Colchis had stooped to the zealous fervor of the ruinous powers taught by its people as the Old Faith.
The Old Faith.
Disease, war, and tyrants would rise and fall in the ebb and flow of the planet's historical record, and its people would learn to accept their lot in life.
Terrible planet.
Yet with the arrival of the child of the Emperor, the planet's transformation would begin. Discovered by the peoples, known as the Declined, their chieftain, Fan Morgal, would name the Primarch LORGAR, the Raincaller.
Okay, that's a fire
Quickly
name.
maturing, within the span of 17 days, LORGAR had grown to the size of a young child and would meet the first of his mentors to set him on the path of damnation.
I think this is an interesting world where no one looks at a kid who grows this fast and considers him a demon or something like that. You know, I can imagine humankind be like, this is, well, maybe it's because they're sophisticated enough. Because I think if a modern child would have grown that fast, across most of our civilizations, we would consider them a god or a deity. But I think in past civilizations, I think it depends. I feel like, I'm just going to say this, if it's a Christian-based society in older times, they would treat it like a demon or something. I think they would. But they're probably like, I don't know, Aztecs, Mayans. I kind of feel like they would see this as a sign and treat the kid with respect. So what are your thoughts without any way of being condescending, you know? Just trying to get an eye for what different faiths would treat this.
Corferon, an exiled priest of the planet's ruling religious sect, the Covenant, would pass through the encampment of the Declined. Seeing the favor of his patron gods within the young boy, Corferon would convince the Primarch to become his disciple.
Oh my god, this kid was already rotten.
And the Declined peoples, Corferon would hide the origins of his now adopted charge and begin to convert the young Primarch to his beliefs.
Wow, got him young.
Physically and mentally abusive in his methods of tutoring, Corferon would mold the boy into a convert of the Old Faith with a peerless understanding of its fell teachings. Incorporating his own belief that there was a being known as the One, LORGAR would transform his understanding of the Old Faith from a polytheistic doctrine into a monotheistic religion. Dismissing the Primarch's notion of the One, Corferon would continue to abuse his foster son for his belief, and so deep within LORGAR'S psyche, a perverse dependency to his guardian.
A perverse dependency.
With time, LORGAR would grow in stature and be beyond the physical torments of his father. Pathologically loyal to Corferon, LORGAR'S prowess as an orator would garner the Raincaller many followers. Known as the Godsworn, LORGAR'S ever-expanding band of zealots would soon challenge the dominance of the Covenant.
There you go.
Naming their leader the Bearer of the Word, LORGAR'S Godsworn would liberate...
The Word Bearers? This guy is always in my face, man. He's always in my face. Because I know at the beginning of this video, I made it sound like, yo, I barely know about this guy named LORGAR. But the Word Bearers are always in the mix doing something. Okay. Don't hype him up now. LORGAR might
the downtrodden
be
slaves of the planet across its settlements and march for the capital city of Varadesh. LORGAR'S army would descend upon the city of Grey Flowers, and after conducting a sermon at the gates of Varadesh, the low-caste priests within would open the gates to the city.
Wow.
Presenting the corpses of the ruling ecclesiarchs of the Covenant before LORGAR, the bearer of the word would not stand idle as he commanded his Godsworn to conquer each neighboring city. Converting swaths of cultists to his cause, LORGAR would preach his faith to his disciples. For years, the Godsworn would battle the heretics to their faith, and with time, LORGAR would descend to become the ruler of cultists. Proclaiming his foster father, Corferon, as the new high priest of the Covenant, LORGAR would look to the stars for the arrival of the One. Seeing visions of a being clad in bronze armor, accompanied by a towering cyclops, LORGAR would see to the proclamation of his portents of the future.
I actually just wanted to share with you guys. So in my story, it's highly religious. I know people say, don't tell people your ideas, they're going to steal it. Like, oh fam, everyone's borrowing from ideas in some shape or form. you could take this and I still will have an original idea or enough of a deviation. But like I wanted a church army and I wanted nations to still have their individual army. But I couldn't figure out like how the church would be more powerful than individual nations' army. I couldn't figure out how to do this power balance of having a standard army with various nations and the world church, but the world church doesn't have control over the entire world. There would be sects or factions that the church just can't get to, or they just don't have full dominion over because they're spread too thin. So I feel like it makes sense for hypothetically all of the soldiers to be religious on the planet and make it more of a religious world. So all soldiers are religious, and there just happens to be monotheistic faiths, for example, and they may group together. Therefore, their nations are more allied, and they would share like a central figure who'd be like the Pope or something like that. And that would represent, for example, something like NATO, right? So they're all different, but they have similar values, and that's why they coerce. But in my story, I'm going to make them more aggressive in nature, not as defensive as NATO. But if you're in Russia, you're going to say that NATO is actually aggressive because they keep encroaching on your doorstep. So that's actually fine. That's beautiful, because I think that you should have multiple perspectives, and I want the viewer to have different perspectives. So fine, if NATO's aggressive, so be it. As an American, I say we're defensive in nature because of Russia. And Russia are like, well, see, my bias is still going to come into play. We're aggressive in nature because you guys keep expanding, so we have to do this. If you live in Russia and you're listening to this, I got no beef with you. I'm American. I'm doing what's, American interests. You're Russia. You're doing Russian interests. I love you. Truthfully, we just have to do what we have to do. And I think for the most part, our governments are to blame, because if you remove the government, and we can just talk eye to eye, I'm like, yo, man, I don't even care about what's going on over there, bro. Like, what? I don't know what your perspective is. So I think we're going to be okay. I went long to digress that I could speak about a country and have no problem with its people. I'm just explaining how optics view. You got propaganda. I've been exposed to propaganda. I don't read y'all newspapers. You don't necessarily read my newspapers. I got the algorithm showing me what they think they want me to know. So until we have a meeting together, we don't even know the full picture in a way that makes sense. I just want to say that. That's just how I am. None of it comes with animosity as I say things. And I do have bias, but I don't have bias from a negative position. That's just information I've been exposed to. Anyways, I think I've said enough of my views. So shout out to my homies.
Members of the Covenant would decry such teachings, and as a schism grew within its ranks, its leaders would attempt to arrest Lorgar for his heretical views. Yet upon attempting to seize the Raincaller, Lorgar's disciples would tear his assailants limb from limb in a deranged frenzy to protect their prophet.
Ooh, the disciples didn't do that for my homie Jesus.
Upon Colchis and bathe its citizens in blood for 6 years. Storming the Cathedral of Illumination and killing the dissident monks within, Lorgar and his Godsworn would enact their great purge across the planet and follow their new archpriest in their devotion to
Lorgar and their Godsworn. I love this. I do. Hold on, guys. You know me. I gotta keep notes. These are the orcs. Where are my Primarchs? So just so you can know, like, why I can't find things, I will write my notes down, and they'll be very sloppy, and then I'll, like, plug it into ChatGPT and say, like, clean this up for me, and then it'll rearrange it, make it nice. I'm just writing along the way. Has his God sworn, and his legion is word bearers. I like that. I also like, one thing I like about Warhammer 2, some videos I'm more talkative than others. It all depends on my fatigue level. Because the suns end up on different planets, you have totally different cultures, different worlds. And you can write from this planet and it's a whole different perspective. Like, this whole planet is a religious planet. Pravute, they're more of a Roman / inspiration. Like, they have so much different types of planets that make you tell a vast array of stories. In my story, it's like I feel like I'm trying to have too much in the same planet, and it's like I should just overly commit to one world and know that that's the niche I'm going to serve. Sometimes you try to be a master of everything and a master of and then you get nothing. I kind of failed in that. But you can be so general, so broad that there's nothing you excel on and you won't have a particular audience when you should just lean. Is it a religious story? If it is, lean all the way. You have major religions and they have major militaries. Don't half-ass it. Half religious, half, I don't know, whatever you want to do, and then you end up half-assing a lot of themes. Anyways, I think I'm going to really like this Primarch's background story.
Knowing his true name to be the Emperor, Lorgar would await the salvation of his people by his prophesied God, safe in the knowledge that his arrival would be imminent.
He waiting for
would descend
Christ,
upon cultures
basically.
during 857.M30, a solar year after Lorgar's conquest of his homeworld.
Nice.
Accompanied by his son, Magnus the Red, the master of mankind would meet with the bearer of the word. Falling to his knees, Lorgar would praise the being before him as his people in unison knelt before their Messiah. The true God of mankind had descended from the heavens, and on this momentous day, the people of Colchis would be enraptured by his visage. Accepting his long-lost son, the Emperor would install Lorgar as the Accepting his long-lost kind had descended from the heavens, and on this momentous day, the people of Colchis would be enraptured by his visage. I've never seen the word rapture used in that form. I'm used to the rapture from a Christian perspective, but enraptured by his visage. The Remembered Sir Wes Hammer, they write some very good scripts. Like, who puts these kinds of words together? Fantastic. I gotta remember, he was enraptured. I was enraptured by the image of Jennifer Lopez. Wow. Sabrina, what's that girl's name? This one, who makes that espresso song? Whatever, Sabrina Carpenter. I was enriched by the presence of Serena Carpenter. Or the Sabrina Carpenter. I don't know. I gotta remember that word. Enraptured. That is a nice word. Enraptured. Enraptured by his vestige. I think the way I put together sentences will change over time as I keep exposing myself to the vocabulary of these videos. That was a terrible attempt. By his visage. Accepting his long-lost son with open arms, the Emperor would install Lorgar as the leader of the 16th Legion, the Imperial Heralds, and task the Raincaller with joining the Great Crusade. Accepting his offer with vigor, Lorgar would venture into the stars, proclaiming the divinity and salvation offered by his father. Admonishing Lorgar's treatment of his stature as a god, the Emperor would nonetheless allow the newly renamed Word-Bearers and their Primarch to wage their campaigns across the galaxy. Reorganizing the 17th Legion into a force of relentless scions of the Emperor's divinity, Lorgar would allow for his guardian Corpheron to undergo surgeries to ascend to the stature befitting his most trusted counsel.
Oh.
Putting non-compliant worlds to the sword should they reject the Emperor's emancipation.
Wow.
The Word-Bearers would be merciless in their application of violence to any whom would object to the Master of Mankind's divinity.
Crazy work.
Punishing blasphemy, heresy, and idolatry of pagan superstition, the 17th Legion would cleanse the galaxy with purging flame. The Word-Bearers' campaigns would stall by virtue of their ritualistic sermons and spectacles of worship, and for their willing ignorance of the commands of the Great Crusade and their Emperor, the Word-Bearers would be punished.
Alright, guys. I'm sorry to hold on a pause at this video. Sometimes I don't know if certain Primarchs benefit from my energy level, because there's a difference between recording, I don't know, at 12 p.m. versus recording this at 9 p.m. It just is. But, you know, it is what it is. But, yo, this dude, he's high on the list right now. I have to move him because right now everyone is written in the order that I like them for the most part. By the way, Magnus and Horus, it has nothing to do with emotion. I just don't have any particular feelings. I don't dislike them. There's not a single Primarch who I'm like, oh, I dislike them. They just happen to be at the bottom of the list. The last time I put any thought into ranking was Protabo. Once I got Magnus and Horus, I didn't feel strongly enough to really even try to rank them. They're just like, okay, cool. I'm glad I got those backstories. Now we got my boy Conrad, Ferris, the Gorgon, Mastersmith, the Living Metal Arms. We're gonna put Lorgar. We got Rabute, Lumen Roos, the Khan, Fulgrim, Conrad, Lorgar taking the 6th spot, I believe. And he might go higher. I love what he's up to right now as far as character goes. Lorgar is the one.
In their loyalty.
Before I go in, I had things I'm predisposed to. Before Rabute's video, I already just keep this just because I keep props. I'm always ready for some religious stuff when I'm reacting to shows, whatever. I actually never pull it up, but there's just things that are near me that are important to me. So when I see it, it's like, I like that. Conrad reminds me of Batman. Oh, man.
The word bearers would nonetheless prove to embody every one of the greatest flaws at odds with the imperial truth of the Imperium. Unable to allow their zealous ways to continue, the Master of Mankind would summon the Ultramarines Legion and their Primarch, Rabute Guilliman, to censure the 17th.
No, leave us be.
Upon the world of Kerr, the entire might of the 13th Legion, alongside the Legio Custodes, would descend upon the planet city of Monarchia.
Wow.
The Emperor and his most trusted advisor, Malcador the Sigillite,
Malcador the Sigillite.
A symbol of the word-bearer's religious devotion, Monarchia epitomized every flaw that the imperial truth espoused to prevent. Worshipping the Emperor as a god, the so-called perfect city, teeming with cathedrals and places of worship, was an affront to every ideal the Imperium stood for. Ordering the Ultramarines to raze the city to the ground, though reluctant with his orders, Primarch Rabute Guilliman would comply. Lorgar and his legion would be forced to kneel as they helplessly watched their perfect city burn at the hands of the Emperor's
the get
forces.
back is gonna be crazy.
Humiliated by the 13th Legion, the word-bearers would be shamed by the Legion encapsulating the Imperial truth's teachings to the letter.
Let me read that sentence again.
His Legion, the Imperial truth's teachings to the letter. Word-bearers would be shamed by the Legion encapsulating the Imperial truth's teachings to the letter. Lorgar had failed his people, his Legion, the Imperium, and most of all, his father. Boundless grief would be sown deep within Lorgar's very soul as he watched his cathedrals of stained glass and marble fall to the gunfire of the Ultramarines.
God dang, Ultramarines, who I love, by the way.
Lorgar's devotion to his father would be ripped from his heart, and in the wound which took its place, a festering resentment would bloom.
I'm with it.
The Golden One would never forget this slight upon his Legion, and would slowly begin to plot revenge for the destruction of the paradise he had created. Withdrawing from the public eye of the Great Crusade, the word-bearers would stew in their disgrace. Their devotion to the Emperor as a living benevolent god had been proven false and shaken their purpose to the core. Unable to accept responsibility for his own failings, Lorgar Aurelian would venture into the galaxy to find answers befitting his ego.
The
ruinous powers would call to the Urizen, for their influence had always been rooted within the Primarch's upbringing, from his adoption into the old faith.
That's what got him.
Offering atonement for his doubts in the Emperor, the forces of chaos would speak through the honeyed words of Corpheron and the first chaplain of the word-bearers, Erebus.
Erebus.
Resolving to seek out the beings whom had called to him, Lorgar would pilgrimage alongside his 1,301st Expeditionary Fleet to the Cadia system. Watched closely by 5 members of the Legio Custodes, appointed by the Emperor, Lorgar would descend upon the world of Cadia and meet with the barbaric human tribes upon its surface.
I'm excited.
By the purple-eyed inhabitants of the planet, Lorgar would speak with the leader of the cultists, a female priestess known as Ingefell.
Oh, Ingefell, what's she look like?
Conducting a ritual by sacrificing the custodian Zendatha, Ingefell would transform into a being of chaos and whisper lies into the ears of the Urizen.
Of the Urizen.
Stating that the Eldari race had birthed a being.
I'm sorry. What is the Urizen? Hold on. Another American ally just issued an economic warning because of the trade war. Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm going to skip that. Valid to be informed. Urizen. Warhammer 40K. What is that? The Urizen meaning the wisest of the wise. Oh, that's LORGAR, the Urizen. You see, in the very beginning, like, they would just be switching up words. And I'm like, yo, at what point did we change the name to that character? It really can throw me off sometimes. So, okay, I'm here.
A being of chaos and whisper lies into the ears of the Urizen.
Terrible.
Stating that the Eldari race had birthed a being known as Slaanesh into existence,
This
and
is
through
true.
ignorance and fear, abandoned their new patron's majesty. Grieving for the rejection of its divinity, she who first would punish the Eldar for their transgression.
Yes, she did.
This deception would fuel LORGAR'S naivety, as Ingefell imparted a warning that should humanity wish to survive extinction, they must not follow in the Eldar's footsteps and submit themselves to the worship of chaos and its pantheon of gods.
Oh no.
The word-bearers dispatched to the Eye of Terror within orbit of Cadia would return to their Primarch, transformed by the ruinous powers and bearing word of their own revelations.
See, people like him, they always need something to believe in, and this reflects on certain people. He needed to believe in a god. He was raised to be a religious person. So when his god emperor of mankind betrayed him, as far as I'm concerned, he needed to find a different god, and he was easily persuaded, and now he's a religious extremist. As far as I'm concerned. But yeah, the god emperor betrayed him because he needed somebody, and they embarrassed him. I'm with it.
Believing the lies of Ingefell, LORGAR would order his warships to bombard Cadia in order to conceal the knowledge of the primordial truth.
Oh.
He alone would be the herald of the gods of chaos, and through their influence, the Urizen would achieve vengeance against the Emperor.
Wow. So he destroyed the people that gave him the info.
With his knowledge of the primordial beings of the Immaterium, LORGAR would venture into the heart of the Eye of Terror. Piloting a Stormbird into the heart of the storm, LORGAR would be accompanied by Ingefell as his demonic guide. Upon the remnants of the Eldar craft world, Zulasa, the Raincaller would observe the carcass left in the wake of the birth of Slaanesh and be confronted by an avatar of the Eldar, Cain. The ruined being of former divinity stood before the Urizen, and with his Crozius mace, Illuminarum, LORGAR would bludgeon the avatar to its painful end. Demanding further insight from Ingefell, LORGAR would be transported through space and time to the Eternity Gate of the Emperor's Imperial Palace. Granted a vision of the Siege of Terror, the Urizen would watch as thousands of Phasmantagoria of the Legiones Astartes bled and died around him. Rogel Dawn, Primarch of the Imperial Fists, led his men against a horde of barbaric space marines clad in arterial red. They were his sons, their slate grey supplanted with shades of freshly spilled blood. They had cast aside their old beliefs and reinvigorated with new purpose, sought to bring the Imperium to heel. Watching his Astartes transform into demonically possessed warriors, LORGAR would marvel at their terrible might. At their vanguard, his most blessed son, Argel Tal, would charge against the great angel, Sanguinius, and perish as they clashed. This glorious promise of the future would impress upon the Primarch as his mind began to process what he had seen. Yet another vision would be gifted to LORGAR of the homeworld of the Crimson King. Prospero burned at the hands of the rout, to which LORGAR would be horrified that such a destiny would befall the Thousand Sons.
Right?
LORGAR would enact the war of vengeance against the Emperor, though he would never be its leader. He would be its witness.
Interesting
the Emperor
perspective.
Would pay for the treatment of his deeds, and the word-bearers would lead the charge to rend the still-beating heart from the Imperium. Each Primarch in his place would rule the Imperium or corrupt it to their own cause, but not LORGAR. LORGAR would destroy it completely and forge a new future from the ashes.
Oh, why am I getting an ad? My bad.
We're getting there.
Well, as you guys know, I do not use an ad block. I do not use an ad blocker, but I'm logged onto the account that I don't use premium for. So, no, that homie got some ad.
Your realm.
Good for him.
LORGAR would begin his slow treachery against the Imperium. Sowing the seeds of betrayal within the hearts of his Primarch brethren, the catalyst of the civil war of humanity, Horus Lupercal would be the linchpin to sunder the Imperium.
Sunder the Imperium.
Ordering his first chaplain, Erebus, to stand at the side of the War Master, the plot to corrupt the champion of the Emperor would with time be achieved. 40 years after his venture into the Eye of Terror, Lorgar would join Horus in his betrayal of the Master of Mankind. Aiding in the purge of the loyalist elements within the traitor legions upon the world of Istvan free, the Word-bearers would relish the chance to sate their blades in the blood of the Emperor's subjects. Achieving further reprisal against the loyalist counterattack of the Emperor on the world of Istvan V,
Istvan V, my bad.
Commanders from the Iron Warriors, Night Lords, and Alpha Legion in their alliance to join the War Master's rebellion. Employing his skill as an orator, Lorgar would further embolden the resentments harbored within the Lord of Iron, Night Haunter, and Hydra. Taking to the field during the Dropside Massacre, the Urizen would lead his men in their holy war against the Emperor's staunch defenders. Turning on their allies, the second wave of the Legion's assault would surround the Loyalists and massacre their amassed strength. Engaging the Salamanders and Raven Guard, the Word-bearers would unleash their armored vehicles against the exposed ranks of the 18th and 19th Legions. Seeking to staunch the wound inflicted to his forces, the Raven Lord, Corvus Corax, would charge into the skirmish and confront Lorgar.
Confront him.
Carving a path through the Word-bearers, Corax would duel the Urizen and prove to be more than a match for the Primarch, known for his lack of martial prowess.
Oh.
Impaled through the stomach by Corax's talons, Lorgar. Carving a path through the Word-bearers, Corax would duel the Urizen and prove to be more
than a match for the Primarch, known for his lack of martial prowess. Oh, the Urizen is not very strong physically compared to the other one. At least his martial prowess part. What does that mean? And what is he good at? Is he like, sometimes people excel in one area and they lack another area. What is he good at? Or is he just like the weakest?
More than a match for the Primarch, known for his lack of martial prowess.
Dang.
Impaled through the stomach by Corax's talons, Lorgar, through desperation to survive, would break his brother's nose with a strike of his skull until the blades within him would be retracted. Fated to die, the Urizen would, with the intervention of the Night Haunter, be spared.
Nice.
And for the remainder of his life, bear the wounds to his face, clawed by the Raven Lord.
Oh, there he is.
Healing from his grievous wounds, Lorgar would join the War Master aboard the Sons of Horus flagship, the Vengeful
Who's this
Spirit,
dude chained up
as
with
the
the gold
deliberations
going
of the
on?
conclave of the Primarchs began. 9 Primarchs had been mustered to wage war against the Imperium, yet already signs of change within them had begun. Fulgrim, Primarch of the Emperor's children, had become possessed by a demon, whilst Magnus the Red now bore power gifted by the Changer of Ways. Disgusted at his brother Fulgrim's total submission to a lesser being, Lorgar's notion of symbiotic cooperation with the forces of chaos would be challenged by the presence of this husk of the Phoenician.
Oh.
Storming from the chamber,
A lesser
Lorgar
being.
would return to his own flagship, the Fidelitas Lex.
Okay.
Conversing with the Crimson King, Magnus the Red, Lorgar would reveal his knowledge of the fall of the Eldari and the birth of the Prince of Pleasure.
Yeah?
Cautioned by his brother not to indulge too deeply with his manipulations of the powers of the warp,
Yeah.
Magnus would warn his brother that such dealings would invite malicious interlopers from the Immaterium. Ignoring the Crimson Lord's counsel, Lorgar would meet with the War Master to discuss their next objective in their crusade against the Imperium. The Ultramarines would prove to be the gravest threat posed to their rebellion, and for them to succeed, the Lords of Ultramar must be kept from interfering.
Oh, okay.
The treachery of the Word-bearers had been contained within Istvan, yet it would not take long for the 17th to show their intent. Traveling to the Calf system under the guise of reconciliation, the Word-bearers would meet with the Ultramarines. Fueled with the memory of their once proud city of Monarchia, the Word-bearers would parley with the Ultramarines until their time to strike would be ordered. Led by Corferon, the warships of the 17th would bombard the docked Ultramarines' vessels, and in a surprise attack, slaughter the unaware and vulnerable Astartes. Annihilating clusters of the fleet of Ultramar, the Wordbearer's revenge would be achieved. As droves of demons would be summoned into the system by rituals and sacrifices, Corphaeron's men would jettison Rebute Guilliman into the vacuum of space, yet be unable to slay the stalwart son of the Emperor.
Yo, you throw him in space
As the 13th Legion retaliated,
Crazy work.
the Wordbearers would poison the son of Calph and summon a gigantic warp storm to entrap the Ultramar system.
Jeez.
The ruin storm would spread its wicked tendrils across the stars, alike to a great wound. Yet Lorgar's hunger for vengeance would not be sated. Simultaneously, Lorgar's forces and the World Eaters Legion would rampage across the Ultramar system as they harried the populaces to mark their Shadow Crusade.
I'm with
Further
it.
draining the Ultramarines of resources and able-bodied souls, the barbarism of the Shadow Crusade would stall with the worsening state of the Primarch of the 12th Legion,
Ooh.
Angron.
Angron with the
The
twin
500
axes.
worlds had been bled, yet upon the Lord of Red Sands' homeworld, the Urizen would search for a means to cure his brother of his affliction, the Butcher's Nails.
Yeah.
Finding no balm for his dying brother upon Nyceria, the 12th and 17th Legion would butcher the High Riders and rabble of the planet. Yet with their haste to cure Angron, the Ultramarines had regrouped and tracked the Shadow Crusade's leaders to the world of Nuceria. The Retribution fleet of the Ultramarines would destroy Lorgar's flagship, the Fidelitas Lex, and led by their Primarch, descend upon Angron's homeworld. Facing his most hated brother in combat, Lorgar would attempt to slay Rebute Guilliman, yet prove no match against the Lord of Ultramar. Before the killing blow could be dealt, Angron would launch himself into the fray and battle Guilliman. Their clash would enrage the Primarch of the World Eaters, as a misstep of Guilliman would crush the skull of one of Angron's long-dead comrades-in-arms as it fell from a bandolier of his armor. Drawing upon Angron's rabid grief, the Urizen would feel the presence of the gods of chaos and enact a ritual to transform his brother into the avatar of the blood god, Khorne.
Dang.
The ascension of the Red Angel would force the Ultramarines to retreat.
Just to make sure I don't misunderstand, are all the Chaos gods considered lesser gods, or is Slaanesh a lesser being? Because now I'm confused, because he just enacted a ritual to cause Angron to transform. But earlier they talked about him viewing, dang it, Fulgrim into being possessed by a lesser being. And that might be what it is. It's one thing to be possessed by a lesser being, right? That is not a chaos god. That is just some demon. Some demon got you, you know what I mean? Versus a chaos god, God himself, basically, transformed you, the Primarch, into a greater threat. I think I understand it. Lorgar is okay with the forces of chaos at this moment in the story. And it's one thing to serve a chaos god and be transformed, but he would look down on you if you allowed some lowly demon to inhabit your body. I got it. I think I do.
And with the 13th once more withdrawn from the conflict, Lorgar would turn his attentions to the final battle to decide the fate of humanity. Lorgar had proven to be a worthy conduit for the will of the ruinous powers. A true disciple of the gods of chaos, Lorgar would resent Horus for his failure to fully submit to their will. Foreseeing that only through total surrender to their patron gods would victory against the Emperor be achieved, Lorgar would plot to overthrow Horus to become the War Master. Confiding his plans to his Dark Apostle, Zardu Lyak, and the Primarch of the 3rd Legion, Fulgrim,
Of course.
Lorgar would meet with Horus Lupercal aboard the Vengeful Spirit. The War Master had fallen during the Battle of Beta Garmon by a wound of the Dionysian spear.
Oh, he had
Leman
fallen.
Russ, Primarch of the Space Wolves, had delivered the blow and come close to slaying the Champion of Chaos.
The champion of
In orbit of Ulanor, as the traitors mustered their remaining forces to assault Holy Terror, the Urizen would attempt his coup. Though with forewarning from the Crimson Apostle, Horus would attack Lorgar and prevent his betrayal from being achieved.
No.
Beaten to within an inch of his life, the Urizen would be banished from the War Master's sight and ordered to not interfere with the remainder of the Horus heresy.
Critical move, because his
Retreating from
faction
the
is
amassed
gone.
fleet of the War Master, Lorgar would be slain should he ever return to the presence of the Lupercal.
No one's going to accept
the war
him.
to be lost beyond all hope of salvation, the bearer of the word's ravings would with time be proven true. The War Master would fail in his rebellion to overthrow the Imperium,
He
and
knew
in the wake of
that.
his civil
He knew
war,
that.
damn humanity to wage an endless struggle of survival. Lorgar would in the millennia humanity to wage an endless struggle of survival.
Doom humanity.
Lorgar would in the millennia following ascend to the form of a demon prince of chaos undivided, and seek penance for his failure to conquer humanity in the name of his patrons. His faith had been rewarded, yet his pledge to the dark gods still remained unfulfilled. Isolating himself within the Templum Inficio upon the demon world of Sicarus, the Urizen to this day has not been interrupted in his meditations. However, rumors stir that the Archpriest of the Primordial Truth has been harried by the Raven Lord of the 19th Legion, and after a bitter duel, followed by years of isolation, the Urizen embarks upon the material realm once more, leading his legion to bring his wretched sermons and litanies to worlds unfortunate enough to stand in his path, and convert any willing to surrender their souls to his foul benefactors. Lorgar wrote something several years ago that nourished my thoughts each day and night since he shared it with me.
I'm ready to write this,
The World Eater snorted, showing just what he thought of his pious Scrivener brother's musings, but Russ was unfazed. "It was not that corruption is recognized," Russ quoted. "It must be opposed. It is not enough that ignorance is acknowledged. It must be defied.
Yes.
Win or lose, what matters is making a stand for the virtues we will bequeath to the human race. When this galaxy is finally ours, we'll hold a worthless prize if we plant the last Aquila on the last day on the last world, having led humanity into moral darkness."
I like that.
Angron listened, but cared little. Even then he was a stubborn creature, taking spiteful pride in his own isolation. "Lorgar wages war with a quill," he said.
But
the galaxy will not be brought to heel by crude philosophy. Your ideals are meaningless.
Rules the galaxy with a quill on 10. He's a talker. That's why they said that they got him because he was an orator. My man talks better than he can fight. That sounds like me, except I'm not as great as an orator. So, it is time to upgrade our list. Rabute. Lorgar is moving to second place, man. He's moving to second place. That is my second favorite Primarch. I won't betray Rabute. Ironically, that my first and second are so opposite of each other. So very opposite, in my opinion. Right? Do you guys kind of think so? Anyways, I love Lorgar's story. So what do we got? Man was raised to be highly religious, okay, on his planet, influenced by chaos gods and their followers at a young age. Hey, before I keep writing, we're trying to get this channel to 20,000. So if you guys made it this far, you're listening, but you haven't subscribed, I want to beseech you to please do so. That'll help me in doing what I do on a regular basis, which is just sharing things I'm interested with folks that are also interested in what we're interested in. Anyways, let's get our knowledge together so we're not in a rush. I'm in good energy. It's unfair, man. Again, I told you, when I did Magnus and Horus, I knew I was a little fatigued, but, that's the time I had in the day. Sometimes I'm like, what to do? But I remember the information. I'm just like, it kind of feels unfair because I'm so excited in this video. And sometimes I'm not excited in others. And I don't know if it's the content or the day. Man was raised a highly religious on his planet, influenced by chaos gods and their followers at a young age. He worshipped the emperor of mankind as a messiah and spread him being a god. Emperor did not want this, so he had Rabute destroy a planet, a city, I'm going to say a city, and embarrass Lorgar. Okay. And look, the Emperor is treated as a god right now, and he's stronger for it. So I feel like if Lorgar had had his way, mankind would have been a lot better off. That's my opinion. But Lorgar himself was misguided, you know? But having a stronger emperor, whom was a relatively... Nah, he wasn't always a just. Sometimes the emperor made some bad decisions. So I don't know. The emperor, like Rabute, was conscious of concentrated power that gets corrupt is dangerous. So you have the emperor of mankind, and you raise him up, and he becomes corrupted, if that's possible. But he makes bad decisions, or because he's so powerful. First of all, he makes bad decisions sometimes because he's a man. If he makes bad decisions or forces a bad decision while being very, very, very powerful, he could destroy mankind. So there's always checks and balances that you want to have. But I'm with Lorgar. Yo, we was praising you, and you turned around and embarrassed me in front of my people, man. Yo, that's kind of lame. So I'm just going to go to these Chaos Gods because they let me do this. They let me be me. You don't let me be me, Dad. You know? Shout out to my man, Magnus Red. You don't let me use my psychic powers, Dad. Which I thought was very understandable. I understand Magnus Red wanted to use his psychic powers, and Dad kinda said nah. Was also influenced by chaos and such, in particularly over sacrificing an eye to save people. He saw the errors of his ways late, but he destroyed the Emperor's Webway project, and that destroyed his relation with his dad. And Horus never got the credit he deserved, or he stopped. He stopped getting the credit he deserved. He stopped getting the credit he deserved and wanted more glory while also being influenced by chaos, and is very charismatic. And he fell. Yesterday, I also asked in my video, like, why do these people think, what do they think they're going to get when they destroy the galaxy that the Emperor made? Horus just wants his glory. Then you got another group that just wants to use their psychic energy, and whatever that means. And then you have Lorgar, who just wants to go ahead and spread his propaganda religion. Fulgrim is influenced by a demon, so that speaks for itself. Perturabo, I still don't know. He fell to Chaos Undivided. So Perturabo fell to Chaos Undivided, and so did Lorgar. I still never got enough conviction to why Perturabo fell, but I just do understand that he fell. Angron, yo, the Butcher Nails, and the Butcher Nails drove him mad, and his father made him abandon his men, and the resentment grew. Yeah, Conrad, easy to understand, and that's it. I think I'm pretty good. All right, guys, thanks for watching today's video. I made some updates. Subscribe if you haven't. You know, if you guys are missing videos, make sure you change the notifications to all so you don't miss out on this stuff. That helps me continue this passion of sharing what I'm interested in learning with you guys. Until next time, I'm your host, Urizen Lee, and I'm out. As always, thanks for supporting this channel. If you don't know, We do have a Patreon, and it's free to join. You can stay updated, suggest content, or vote on polls. If you're interested in our uncut and early reactions to anime, K-drama, Western shows, and movie reactions, which include exclusive reactions not found on YouTube, you can join the upper tiers on Patreon, or you can stick with the edited content right here on YouTube. We got Yaboyrocklee reactions also in the description of this video. Until next time, I'm out.